Hey friends, I hope the morning's treating you well. Hope you got your coffee if you drink coffee. I'm going to tell a little story here, and I hope you guys stay with me. Quite a while back, maybe 18, 20 years ago, something like that, when I would be on tour, you find yourself alone in a hotel room late at night. And, tired and worn out from being on the road for a while. There can be some really not so healthy thoughts that come into your mind and even throughout the day. And I would do my best to keep my head straight. I realized quickly that there's certain things that I need to not be listening to. Like I shouldn't be listening to depressing Townes Van Zandt songs when I'm in that situation, because it'll probably help me slide over the edge a little bit. And I realized maybe I had a little bit of a better idea. Amy's brother, Casey, gave me his old iPod. I didn't know that I would ever need an iPod, but he gave it to me, and I ended up putting a bunch of comedy albums on that. And so I was on the road. If I was in a hotel room late at night, I would put on Richard Pryor live at the Sunset Strip. I'd put on Patton Oswalt, David Cross, Mitch Hedberg, just whatever, lots of different stuff, Rodney Dangerfield stuff from the 60s, and that stuff would keep me smiling and help me get through the tour and get those thoughts out of there. So at some point, just stay with me, like I said, I had a buddy, his name's Ryan Downey, and he was from Indianapolis, and his older brother played bass with me. He's one of my closest friends back then, and I love Ryan to death. Met him when he was really young. He went on to do the news on MTV, and I think he took over for Kurt Loder. Was on E. He's still out there doing really cool stuff, and just a great guy. Well, he came to Nashville, and I think he called me or something. Hey, I'm at Roberts. Why don't you come down and hang out? He lived in L.A. I just never saw him, and I'm like, all right. So I went down there. We're sitting there catching up and saying hey, and I was thinking, man, Ryan knows what's going on way better than me. He's like way hip and all that. So I said, hey, man, what's going on that I wouldn't know about? What's something cool that's happening that I wouldn't know about? And he said, man, these comedians, there's a couple of comedians that started doing podcasts. I said, really? He said, yeah, there's a guy named Mark Maron. I said, yeah, I remember him. And I said, yeah, he's doing a podcast, and it's really cool. You should maybe check that out. And a lot of people talking about it. And at the time, I think there was only like 8 or 15 episodes, and that's when I started listening. And that quickly, stuff like that replaced the stuff on my iPod, from comedians. It was just a lot more stuff that I could watch. All of a sudden, I kind of realized the power of this thing that he was doing. He was really good at it. I thought his monologues were the best part, but of course they would be because he was a stand-up comedian. But he would talk to his friends who were comedians, and when they would go back and forth with each other, just talking, it was really fresh and interesting. And when that happened for an hour and a half, it was really different than anything that, we were used to. And I really loved it. I listened to every single thing for quite a while. And after a while, with anything, there were parts of it that would, bleed in, how he would interrupt his guest all the time and all of that. And so I kind of fell out of it and stopped listening. It took a while, but there was something beautiful about what he was doing right there. It felt very underground, and there weren't that many podcasts. And this is a guy who was kind of at the end of his rope as far as his career went. And he's just like trying this thing and doing it out of his house. And it didn't have to have permission from some company to hire him. And all of that really appealed to me. And it felt underground, and it felt very real. And it was very imperfect. And part of that imperfection was him being an imperfect individual. And I really dug it. And I listened for a while, and I kind of got tired of it, moved on to other things. But we'll say in those early days, I realized the power of it. And I quickly started listening to all kinds of different stuff. Like there was some circus performer who would talk about old time circus stuff, and I felt like there were probably 15 people out there all across the world listening to it, and I'm one of them. And I just listened to so much obscure stuff like that. And since Maron was once on TV, he was famous to me, but like some of these people, it's like these people aren't famous at all, but this is interesting. They're talking about their subculture. And that part of that inspired me to start a podcast. And so, that little chance meeting with my buddy Ryan telling me about Maron, and then me kind of going from Mark down the rabbit hole, all of that led to me starting a podcast with, so I think Maron's kind of one of those guys. I'm not saying he's inspired me to start it, but he definitely was a window into the world. I guess maybe he did. The fact he was famous, it seemed like he was on TV before, sort of famous, but I'm getting in the weeds a little bit. I was attracted to it. The fact you didn't have to have permission to do it. You could just simply do whatever the hell you want, like I'm doing right here, sitting on my couch, talking to you guys, listening to my cat Malcolm snore over here across the room in a chair. And so I stopped listening, and a few years go by, and I remember hearing that he had Obama as a guest on his podcast, and I was like, whoa, really? And I remember being in King's Cross Station on tour in London, and I was waiting for a train, and I downloaded the episode, and I sat there on a bench in the train station looking up at the times, and I listened to the whole thing. And this guy who started this stuff in his garage, this thing that felt of the underground, started a podcast. And now the president of the United States is in his damn garage being part of this. And it felt like a huge win for the underground. And, I was kind of happy for him and all of that. Well, years later, did it for 16 years. A couple days ago, he announced on his podcast that he was shutting it down after 16 years, which is an amazing run to me. I can't imagine what it feels like to do something, to publish something twice a week for 16 years and then shut it down and not do that. I know how much effort this takes, talking to you guys, going out and doing interviews and all of that. And it was always just him and his producer, friend of his, just as business partners. And I've never met Maron, didn't know him or whatever, but I don't know. And he's an imperfect cat. I started listening again. It seems like over the last year, I would cherry pick episodes and listen. And it seemed like in the course of that 16 years, he worked out a lot of his issues with himself. He talks about that a lot. And I don't know, man. I can't imagine doing it for 16 years and shutting it down. So it's definitely the end of an era. I have a feeling quite a few of you listened to Maron at least at some point. And he wasn't the first cat. I have similar warm, fuzzy feelings about Tom Green. And I was kind of shocked at his MTV thing when it first started out. It didn't really appeal to me. I was just shocked by it, which was the point, and then later in life to hear interviews with him and realize that he was very, very human and very affected by all of that. And to hear him talk about it, I could relate to a lot of the stuff, just in a completely different way, but he was very relatable as a human. And the fact he did the TV show because of the experience that he had with MTV, and it wasn't all positive. He wanted to do something that he controlled completely, and he broadcast a television show from his house in LA. like the Tonight Show kind of thing. Only it's him in his house, and he'd have guests on, and did that for a long time. And how groundbreaking that idea was, and how it led the way to a lot of just this, whether people like him or not. But anyhow, and then I heard him recently on Marin, and they were kind of talking about that, and Marin's giving him credit, like, you really did start a lot of this stuff. So anyway, I have a fond feeling for folks who just kind of say the hell with it, I want to walk my own walk, as I can relate to it. I don't want to ask people for permission to do things. I want to do the best I can, make it something that reflects me, or if, that feels like me, that reflects well upon me in whatever ways, and live with the consequences. I had some younger folks ask me every now and then, like, advice. It's like, who the hell am I to give advice to anybody? So I say, artistically, you should do whatever the hell you want to do for whatever reasons, and live with the consequences. And that's artistic advice. That may not be the healthiest life advice, but artistically, I believe that. So I don't know. I've just figured I wanted to note that, and see if any of you guys, what you thought about it. There was lots of flaws. The interviews with Marin, they were really fun. I think, especially when they were musicians, or when they were comedians. Musicians were good because he really knew music. You could tell this is a music nerd with a big, record collection, and he's a guy that read a lot of books. He could talk about authors and all of that, so there was a vast knowledge of stuff. But it sometimes felt kind of shallow because you skim over a whole lot of things, and you're like, why don't we go deep into that? That's interesting there, but you just kind of move past. And comedians have a tendency to want to interrupt and throw in jokes along the way, and it kind of gets a little bit old. And I don't know, maybe that had something to do with why I tend to be quiet and listen to the person and try to cut myself out of it and get a little deeper on one topic or something. I don't know. But anyhow, tipping my hat to Mark Marin, and let me know down below if you guys listen to Marin and dug it. And I'm going to put a video up here. Went over to Dan Baird's house and sat and chatted about guitars and such. Really fun time with Dan and Warner Hodges. Really good stuff. Go ahead and click that and watch that. And I'll see you guys somewhere down the road. Much love to you.